Today at Crush Celluloid, we begin our Fright Fest October with a look at a movie that has a monster so terrifying, so audacious, so bloodthirsty that it can send an entire town into hysterics and then burn it into rubble. That's right. I'm talking about... A whale? What? A whale that rips off jaws. Spooky? Well, at least here's some creepy music to get you in the mood. The whale killing mood. Here's Orca, the killer whale. Alright, so today we are talking about Orca, the killer whale from 1977, the movie that IMDb could not even find a proper box cover for, apparently, as it's just a folded up one sheet they have an image of.
Yeah, pretty bad quality, too.
It's pretty fucking bad.
It looks like an eBay picture of someone trying to sell something they found in a basement.
It really does. It's pretty insane. Like, I mean... I was looking for a way to watch this, and I went to Can I Stream It, and they were just like, you cannot rent, stream, or purchase this film. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, dude, don't you have Amazon Prime?
Yeah, is it on there?
I watched it for free on Prime. Yeah.
Oh, son of a bitch. I didn't even know it was there.
Yeah, no, it was on Amazon Prime.
I hate Can I Stream It. They're always wrong for me. But, yeah, so... Then I watched Orca.
Oh yeah, and I didn't realize you were gonna call it Orca : the killer whale. I thought you were just talking about Orca colons for some reason.
Well, I'm surprised there are not more facts about Orca colons in here, because there is a Moby Dick's worth of whale facts being thrown around in this film.
There is a lot of whale facts, and I really have no idea how many of them are correct, but I know that one of the main ones that the whole premise is based on is absolutely false, which is the whole thing about whales being monogamous and sticking with one mate. That is not true at all. The reason they think that is because they always travel like in families. There's always a larger male and female, but those are always like brothers and sisters. Whales mate with plenty of mates throughout their life. They mate and then they have babies or whatever, but they stick with their family units.
I'm wondering if they knew that by 1977, or if this is like some reason.
They might not have. It's something that I just found out about recently, because I always thought that as well.
Yeah, well, I know that we still, there's still hardly any way to track whales. Like, they kind of go everywhere. There's really... I don't know, they're still very mysterious from what I've heard.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this is like 30 years later, over 30 years later, so I'm not sure how much of the many facts that they throw out are actually correct, or how much of it is just like guessing from the 70s. Yeah,
and no, it's very comparable to Moby Dick, because in Moby Dick, Melville is still, like, he mentions that whales may be mammals, but they're still classified as fish. So there's this whole chapter link talking about whales as fish, and it's just completely wrong now. So
yeah, exactly.
It gets into that territory where you could be forgiven for your times, I suppose. And I'm wondering if the writers, which we'll get to them in a minute, because I think that's the most interesting part, but the writers just did a shit ton of whale research, and they're like, no, we are fucking using all of this. I spent a week on these fucking whale books.
Well, actually, I read some background on this, and I don't know if it's true. It was off the Wikipedia page. But apparently, the guy that produced this, like Dino de la Luca, or whatever the fuck his name is, he apparently saw Jaws at some point in time, and then had a dream or something about making a movie like that. So he talked to his producing partner and was like, okay, find something that's bigger and meaner and tougher than a great white shark, and we'll make a movie about it. And they're like, orcas, I guess. And he's like, yeah, good, go with it.
Yeah, I saw that too. It was one of the writer's brothers happened to be a zoologist.
Yeah,
like, orcas are bigger.
But the writing team is so fucking weird. Like what they've done, like their actual all the writing that they've done. Because the main writer on this, the first one, like he fucking wrote the screenplay for a few dollars more, and also came up with the stories for like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Raw Deal.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I was gonna say. The two main writers, between them, they pretty much wrote all of Sergio Leone's
There you go.
movies. Yeah, I almost missed it. Which, I mean, isn't really saying much, because there's not much happening in Sergio Leone's movies, and they're much more... They're filmed better than they're written by any degree.
Oh yeah, well, it seems like most of their background is like westerns. Those kind of
Yeah.
like Italian western films. So I don't know how they went from that to like giant killer sea animal movie.
Well, I mean, if you look at their IMDb page, it's fucking stacked. Like, these guys just work all the time, so they're just churning out shit. And I guess they got into the Hollywood system with that producer, De Lorenzo, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he seems like he kind of churns out schlock, too.
Oh, yeah. But
So
the
maybe
director
that's
has had a pretty decent career. Michael Anderson, he wrote, or he directed, most notably, Logan's Run, which I absolutely love. But he also did, like, Around the World in 80 Days and Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze.
I've not seen Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze.
Also, by the way, I just have to point this out, but in looking through the background and everyone that was involved in this movie, I ended up coming across the fact that there is a Doctor Strange movie from 1978, like based on the comic book character.
I saw that. I thought that was strange.
I really want to put that on the table. I had no idea that existed, but I really want to watch it.
I mean, if we can find it.
Yeah, we'll have to find it, but I want to go hunting for it.
No. Ha. So I guess let's get into Orca.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to talk about it, I mean, it's not a very popular movie. I think pretty much everyone, especially when it came out, just saw it as a Jaws ripoff, because Jaws came out 2 years before this. But it has like a 5.5 on IMDb, like a 34% audience on Rotten Tomatoes. It made like a couple times its budget back. It made like $15 million on a $6 million budget, so it wasn't a huge flop. But I think everyone was pretty much like, yeah, we know it's a Jaws ripoff. It's not that good. Okay. Moving on.
I remember the first time I saw this, I was like somewhere in the 10 to 13 year age range, and I saw it on Dinner and a Movie. Like, they had like a horror night, and it ended with Orca.
Yeah. And which is weird too, because this is actually based on a novel, so it's not just a complete like Jaws ripoff like something like Piranha is or something like that. This is actually based on a novel, but it was still trying to be a ripoff of Jaws.
Weird. I didn't see that it was based on any novels anywhere.
Yeah, I forget the name of the guy that wrote it, but yeah, it was based on a novel.
Strange. But, yeah, so the opening of the film is what can only be described as whale porn.
Yeah.
It's the most loving music, and also, Ennio Morricone did the soundtrack for this movie.
I actually really like the score to this movie.
No, the score was awesome, but also Ennio Morricone, I mean, it's not saying much because he had a very prolific career, like his movie.
Oh yeah, he's done everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not saying much, but it is it's a good score. It works. It's probably the thing that works best.
It definitely is, but the only thing is the fact that I guess in a lot of ways I could see why it's not really a Jaws ripoff. It kind of is, but it changes the story around, because it doesn't, like in Jaws, the shark is the bad guy. The shark is just like menacing. It is coming after you. It's the bad guy. Here, the orca, it's kind of the hero in a lot of ways, and everyone else is the bad guy. But all the music, it just makes them seem so majestic and magical, like not menacing. Like if you want people to root for your actual human characters and against the orca, don't make them like cute, and don't make them seem so majestic, and then fucking kill them in the movie.
Well, see, that's the whole thing, is that the opening, you're like, what? Like, why are they so lovingly filming these whales? But I think that's kind of the crux of the movie, is it's trying to paint Richard Harris as the bad guy, even though it tries to have like a third act kind of saving him. Like, no, like me and the whale are the same. Like, and it's also doing like this weird reverse Captain Ahab story.
It is very much so. It's more like the whale is Ahab, and yeah. I don't know. It's really weird, but it's actually interesting. And this movie is not at all what I expected. I thought it was just going to be a straight up kind of Jaws ripoff, but with a whale. But I actually was very impressed that they did something different with that kind of story.
Yeah, it's not the Jaws story. It's definitely trying to do something different, and it succeeds to varying degrees.
It does. It succeeded in really making me want to watch Free Willy. I'll say that.
Oh my god, especially the opening scene.
I know.
Like, this is...
Like, seriously, that was one of my first notes. I was just like, Free Willy. This just makes me want to watch Free Willy. Okay. They look cute. They don't look like they're killers.
In some child's mind, the idea for Free Willy started germinating the day he saw Orca in the opening scene.
I need to find out who directed Free Willy, and I want to write him a letter and ask him if that's where that started.
But moving on, so we start off with scientist on the beach doing some kind of weird whale thing, and the best shark scene ever because of how ridiculous it is. I guess it's trying to ape on the Jaws thing once again.
Exactly, because as soon as that happens, it opens with all these whales being majestic and just like pretty and cute and stuff like that. And then immediately, for the first scare of the movie, they throw in a shark. I was like, see, sharks are way more scary. They needed one for a scare scene, but then they completely subverted that by having a fucking whale just tear it apart.
Yeah, I mean, I love that before that, because there's this diver underwater, and he sees the shark, and he's like, oh shit, and he tries to hide behind some rocks, and he takes one loose rock, and it's like trying to cover himself in the hole with it.
And when you keep saying himself, you do mean herself, because it's Charlotte Rampling was the diver that was down there.
Was it? Oh, yeah. I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, so yeah, she's covering herself, and then I love that she drops the rock, and when it hits the ground, the shark moves his head like he just heard that, and he's like, oh shit, somebody's nearby. Like, they're playing it like a psycho killer story. It is the funniest thing I've seen, and I was like, I don't think sharks work that way.
Yeah, I did like how she was just like, oh, just get in a tight spot and cover myself with a rock so I blend in with the scenery.
And then, yeah.
But yeah, we basically meet, a whale comes in and destroys that shark, which is actually kind of surprising and was a really cool scene.
Yeah, no, it was funny,
and I think it was kind of an opening in order to like kind of kill the whole Jaws thing. Just be like, you thought sharks were scary? Whales just tore apart this shark like nothing. Strap yourselves in. This is a whale story. This is a whale of a tale.
I wish that line had been used sometime, but yeah, it's definitely kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely a wink to the audience.
Well, and apparently even in Jaws 2, which came out, I think, a couple years later, maybe 2 years later, they even kind of...
1980.
1980, okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. But they made a reference to Orca somewhat, kind of doing the opposite of that. I think there was a scene where like an orca is like washed up on the beach or whatever, and it's torn apart, and they're just like, yeah, you think those things are bad? No, sharks are way more fierce.
Yeah.
Like they're just kind of jousting with each other back and forth, trying to be like, fuck you, Jaws is better. No, fuck you, whales are better.
Not to mention that, I mean, they're trying to paint whales like a killer, but whale, I mean, and this is where the whole Jaws thing, I guess they couldn't fit it in, because whales subsist on plankton. They don't even eat any, like, large fish. They just eat a lot of small shit in the ocean.
Well, unless they're feeling vengeful.
I guess, unless they're out for some vengeance. Yeah. Well, no, never mind. There are whales that, like, they'll... Because I'm getting all this from Planet Earth when I watched those a while back, but whales will kill seals, and then they will play with their carcasses, like hitting it up in the air with the tails and shit. Like,
yeah, they just like to have fun.
They do. They like to have fun with their food before they eat it. They're very playful creatures.
Yeah.
With their corpses.
Yeah, so then after that, we kind of get introduced to our human characters, which is like a whole boat full of quints from Jaws. Pretty much. It's just like a bunch of like, they're hunting sharks and stuff like that. And so they almost get in the way of the diver and cause a ruckus, trying to get the shark that almost killed her. But then of course it gets killed by a giant whale, and they end up pulling the diver on board, and she takes off her mask, and it's a lady, and they're like, ooh, a lady.
And then they meet the scientist lady on the shore. Is that or is that who was the diver?
Yeah, that's who the diver was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of...
But we pretty much get introduced to, like, the human crew, and you pretty much have a captain who's, like, the Quint. And I guess, like, Charlotte Rampling, the scientist, is, like, Hooper from Jaws. But the main thing why this can't really be that much of a Jaws ripoff is there is no Brody. There is no, like, kind of everyman simple character that we follow along with and kind of, like, root for. In the end, you're kind of rooting more for the whale to kill everyone than you are for the human characters to defeat the whale.
A little bit, yeah. Also, I still haven't seen Jaws, so your references are falling flat for me.
Okay, but they won't for every single other human being on the planet. Because you are the one motherfucker who just has it out for Spielberg so bad you will not watch Jaws.
But, yeah, moving on from there, so... You're the Quint? the captain goes to the scientist lady's killer whale class where it just becomes fucking exposition city, where she says nonsensical thing. Like, I don't even get what the sentence mean, but it's like, their parents, killer whales, are exemplary, perhaps better than humans. I was like, but whose parents? What are you talking about?
No. I think she said as parents.
As
like killer
parents,
whales as parents are possibly even better than humans because they're so protective and shit.
Makes so much more sense.
Yeah, no, basically this whole scene is just like throwing out whale facts as exposition and also foreshadowing what will be happening.
Yeah, because she has the line, they have capacity for revenge. And then
later in the movie
she decides to negate that statement. Like, I don't know. She was very wishy-washy about her science. But my favorite thing about this lecture she's giving is that she says, the whale brain is found to contain 50 million pieces of information. Then they had the 80-yard line, the Bible only contains 4 million, which is such a strange thing to ADR in there. I mean, I guess to give some point of reference for what 50 million pieces of information is.
I guess, yeah, but they had to add that in after the fact, and it's kind of silly. But one of my favorite lines from this class is when she's talking about, like, the way they communicate and how we communicate and how, like, sentences like, hey, how are you doing, are null and void because they pretty much will just know that. They can sense how you're doing, like if you're sick or anything like that. So they're just like, they would consider most of our language completely unnecessary or possibly even retarded.
No, it's what we call language, whales may call pointless or redundant or retarded.
Oh, that's such a good line.
Oh, it is. Fucking... Anyway.
Oh, and also randomly, and I guess at this point we're probably at least a good 20 to 25, 30 minutes into the movie, she randomly starts having voiceovers. Like, I think she only has, 2 voiceovers in the movie. She has one way after the movie starts to where it's like, oh, okay, so I guess she's narrating the story after the fact. I guess she's going to survive. Yeah. But then there's no other voiceover, and there's a lot of scenes where she would not have been present or privy to any of the things going on. And then she has one more voiceover towards, the very end of the movie. It's one of those odd things where it just seems like they tossed in voiceover after the fact because they didn't think the audience would get it.
Well, the one that's later, we'll get to that, but I think they had to add one more just so, we can't have it be that strange that there's just one voiceover because we didn't get the shot we needed or something.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that if they just had the one at the end, that would make way more sense than just having, one randomly inserted towards the beginning to where it seems like a weird narrative setup that never really pays off. If there's just one at the end, it makes sense because she's, spoilers, but she's the one lone survivor, so it makes sense for her to give a voiceover because she survived and she can talk about it after the fact.
Yeah,
that makes more sense.
Well, it would just seem more out of place, I suppose, to just have this one kind of thrown in. I mean, they could have had her journaling. That would have made a lot more sense. That would have been a way to deal with it. But like I said, I think they just didn't have the shot, and they're like, well, we have to make it seem at least sort of consistent, not like we're just throwing in this one voiceover at the very end of the movie for no reason. I mean,
I don't know. I just felt like I would have felt a lot better about any movie that does this if they're really just inserting random voiceovers throughout the movie so that they can have their ending voiceover. I'm fine with an ending voiceover if they're one of the only characters to survive. What? Yeah, just do an ending voiceover and it's
But she did it. But that's the other thing, is she didn't even do an ending voiceover. She does this near to end voiceover that explains one small fact that you may have missed.
Yeah, that's
true. About it.
Yeah, she doesn't really even narrate the end. That is weird.
No, and so that's why I think they had to have the one before to make it at least not as strange. But yeah, an ending one would have made total sense.
Yeah.
But that they didn't even use that for some reason.
For some reason in my head, for the ending voiceover, just 'twas beauty did kill the beast. And I was like, no, wait, that's the wrong movie. Sorry.
Speaking of, the producer, he wanted to make a DeLorean or whatever his name is. He wanted to make a King Kong sequel where King Kong fought an orca. That was one of his plans that never came to fruition.
I would have watched that. I would much rather be talking about that movie than this movie, to be honest.
That would have been awesome.
By the way, I'm sorry, I'm still just laughing that I guess we're going to call him Dino DeLorean from now on.
Dino DeLorean. I like it. And then, so moving on from her class, she goes to meet him and she gets mad that he's about to go hunt an orca because he wants money because places will pay for a live orca.
Oh yeah, so they are trying to get it live. They aren't just going out trying to kill a whale the way they did with the sharks.
Yeah, and his response to everything she is being very reasonable about, his response is, "You're one hell of a girl to be living in a tent, sleeping with a tape recorder." Like, he just starts hitting on her in the most sleazy way.
Oh yeah, no, he's totally just being
smitten.
Yeah, he's totally just being a misogynist dick, just kind of being like, "Oh, that's cute, little girl. Let the big boy fisherman go do his job, okay?"
But she is smitten by this. Like, she's kind of smiling at it, like, "Oh, you."
Well, it's weird because I think that's part of the reason why that opening voiceover is there, because like they slowly kind of have a love story, or at least like there's sexual tension, but it's not that pronounced. So I think one of the things in that voiceover, she's like, "Oh, he kept asking questions. It was actually rather charming, and he was handsome, and blah blah blah." So I think they kind of toss that in to be like, no, they kind of have a thing going on. I know it doesn't really show, but just keep that in mind. That's why she's okay with him talking that way to her.
I know from watching the movie, you can't tell that they have chemistry, but we promise they do.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And then there's another crazy whale scene.
Yeah, this movie gets really fucking dark when it comes to like the whale scenes. Like this actually was kind of terrifying. This freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah, so he tries to harpoon a male. He misses, chips the fin so that we can now identify this whale.
Which, by the way, this movie did come out 3 years before Jaws 2, and I think Jaws 2 kind of ripped off that thing a little bit, because that never happened in the original. But in Jaws 2, what happens is, at the beginning of the film, the shark kind of gets scarred, it gets burned a little bit, so you can tell that it's that shark throughout the film, like it's coming back for revenge. That's what Jaws 2 is about.
Yeah. Okay.
So I kind of think they stole that from Orca a little bit.
Well, Orca stole from them a little bit, so fair is fair. But
they have a symbiotic relationship.
And so he ends up getting the female, and she screams like a dying child or something. It is the most unnerving
awful
thing in the world.
And then she tries to commit suicide by like running herself into the boat's propeller blade.
It's insane. Like, I don't know if whales really do that, but I mean, how would the whale really have an understanding of this? And then they keep pushing it because they get the whale up on board. It's like bleeding out. I mean, it's not like actively bleeding, but there's just kind of blood all over it. And then from a slit in its stomach, you could tell someone's just kind of inside pushing it out. But a fucking
because these are animatronic whales, by the way.
Yeah, not real whales, but they push out a fucking baby whale fetus that just kind of flops on the ground.
Which was the most disturbing thing in the movie. Like, they kind of foreshadowed it, because even in her little whale class she was doing, it was like, oh, the whale fetus is a lot like the human fetus. It even comes out with like 2 arms with 5-fingered hands or whatever. Yeah. But then they're like, oh, that's kind of cute. But then they're like, yeah, we're pushing a dead one out. And then he kind of like, he hoses it off the side of the boat. He's like,
Oh man, I mean, it was straight out of David Lynch. It was so.
It was, but
unnerving.
That really caught me off guard. I was like, holy fuck! I had no idea like she was gonna be pregnant, and like there's a fucked up dead fetus of a whale. Like,
yeah,
man, that threw it off, and I was like, okay, I guess the mate is coming back for revenge now.
Yeah, and then there's all this. The whale comes back for revenge. And I mean, the funniest thing is when I guess the wife whale is hanging. You see, like, they keep focusing on this fake whale eye, and they have it to where it's tearing up. I was like, I don't know if whales can cry.
Yeah, no, well, I think that's just silly, and it's just wet anyway. But there's a lot of weird shots of like whale eyes in this film, and sometimes it does look like the close-ups are more trying to be like animatronic whale eyes. Or maybe even like stock footage shots of whale eyes. But there are certain ones where like if it's at a little bit of a distance, it looks like they painted an eye on the side of the whale.
Yeah. And then the night scene where the whale goes a-hunting.
Well, basically what happens is, it kind of starts ramming into the boat. So they try to cut the female loose because apparently it's still alive after all that.
Yeah.
So they actually let her go into the water, even though she still has like chains and ropes all over her and shit like that.
No.
That's the dumbest fucking thing ever.
Yeah, and then the old guy on the boat, like the old sea hand.
His name was Novak.
Yeah, I know, because they scream his name while having this slow motion shot of the guy, which is so incongruous.
It's
It is
so
the weirdest
funny.
thing.
It's so funny because it is, and it even like it's in slow motion, but the captain's voice is even like dropped down really low because it's slow motion. So he's like, Novak.
And then just like these weird cutback, like the worst editing I've ever seen in a death scene. It just, none of it makes sense. It was horrible. It was, but wonderful at the same time.
But right after that, you can see like the captain is kind of standing on the deck, and you see the whale eye again, and it's like it takes a mental picture of the captain on the deck. I think it even makes kind of like a camera noise. It's like, yeah, like, oh, it's got you now.
You are in my whale eyes. And then this weird whale funeral where
it's like a sad whale funeral.
Yeah, where he's beaching his wife. I guess we're gonna refer to it as the whale's wife, because I think that's what the movie is positing. Which, I mean, I guess it was still alive, so he's like, well, I want to beach you so you die. And then, but he uses it as a warning to the captain, because apparently
which is weird. I don't really understand how everything is set up, how everything is like distance wise to everything else, because it cuts to scenes of like the sad orca funeral, and it looks like they're just out in the ocean and just like being free and just like, oh, we're mourning the dead mate. But then it beaches it, and when it's beaching it, you can see like the captain's boat right behind it. So I don't know what the fuck happened. Like, did it go out to sea or swim around and like do a funeral and then bring it back and completely avoid the boat the whole time? Like, it didn't want revenge right away. It wanted to play with it for a while.
Well, I mean, they try and cover that in a line later, which once again doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, I mean, maybe, like I said, whales do play with dead corpses sometimes. They're like, that's what they'll do to their prey. They'll track them for 2 weeks. He's trying to drive you crazy.
Which is weird, because they're following the whale at that point.
Yeah.
The whale's not even following them. They're just following the whale.
But also, why would a whale track its prey for 2 weeks? Because insanity, even if a whale had an idea of insanity, like, that's not really a trope of other animals or fish or anything, is it?
No, I mean, yeah, you could maybe play with your prey and like fuck it up a little bit, but yeah, you're not going to try to drive it crazy, so it's easier to kill.
This movie, it's
those orca mind games, man. They're fucked up.
And then so the captain is on the beach, and the scientist shows up and looks at the beached whale. The captain comes and they're talking. He's trying to be coy about it, and she's like, "Look, I told you this was gonna happen. I told you we're gonna end up killing a whale, try to capture one." And out of nowhere, a Native American. The Native American from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
It's like a random Indian companion, but yeah, it's the chief from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he's he's in the Outlaw Josie Wales.
Yeah.
but also I wasn't sure if he was trying to be like Indian, or if he was trying to be like Eskimo or something, because I know they're in Canada, so I didn't know like who would know more about whales, Indians or Eskimos. But he's definitely trying to be Indian.
Yeah, I mean, I was very confused about where, like, I didn't realize they were supposed to be in Canada, because
I didn't
talk
notice
about
that.
New Zealand.
Yeah, I didn't notice they were in Canada until when he goes to the church, and there's a Canadian flag hanging up in the church. That's when I realized they're in Canada.
Gotcha. I do know this is filmed in Malta.
Yeah, but it apparently takes place in Canada.
Huh. Fun times. But I just love that this native, I guess, Eskimo, this native, we'll just call him a native, just comes out of nowhere. Like, it's like he's been standing in the distance just waiting for the perfect time to walk up with his one-liner. Like, he's been hiding under this one boat in the background, because that's the only other place he could have been.
Yeah, no, I pretty much think that's just the life of an Indian. I think they just, like, they stand on the sidelines and they watch what the white man does until they're like, oh, I can go drop some knowledge on him and tell him what a dick he is. And then he's like, yes, my people know of this.
But at the same time, it's almost like he wants to be Richard Harris's best friend. So he just keeps showing up, and he just wants to help him.
And then later on, he's just like, oh, I'll be part of your crew when we go try to kill the whale. It's like, why the fuck would you do that? You, like, wouldn't sell his buddy gas a second ago, and now you're like, no, I'll be a part of your crew. It's okay.
It's, absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's weird. And again, at this point, I'm just like, is Rampling still the narrator? Because is that just for like a scene or two? Because she wouldn't know about any of this going on. And she even makes a reference a little bit later or around this time where she's like, no, he saw you. He saw you on the deck. He has you in his mind now. Like, you weren't fucking there for that. How would you know that the whale took a picture of the captain with his eye?
Yeah, it's... I don't get it.
But anyway, this is the point where the action kind of kicks up a little bit. So it gets kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, they get taken into the dock, like the dock hands they kind of know about the whale already, and they're like, so everyone apparently is under the impression that whales are vengeful killers, which this is not common knowledge anywhere else in the world, so...
You know what I think it is? I think our Indian buddy's just been running around telling everybody this shit whenever he gets a chance, so everyone's just spooked whenever anything happens with the whale.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think they give it away in a line. They're like, oh, it's local superstition. And so apparently they've had problems with whales being vengeful.
Yeah, so apparently whales have completely destroyed their community before.
This is not the first time a whale has completely destroyed their...
And this whale really fucks up their community. It's kind of ridiculous.
They have a strict no whale immigration policy. And I love when they're at the dock, because you notice that the boat is named Bumpo, which is the stupidest name for a boat ever. I have a better boat that I just had off the top of my mind when I saw that. Dokep, the Picard, but backwards. Look, that's
I like
fucking,
that.
that's good. But no, they are Bumpo. Bumpo the boat.
Well, they act like the crew of Bumpo. I have to say that.
They really do. And then you also see where most of the budget for this movie went, which is to sink boats.
Oh yeah, that whale just goes up to the shore and starts sinking like random people's boats, but apparently leaving the captain's boat alone, because he's like, no, you're gonna go out to sea and we're gonna fight, but I'm gonna sink everyone else's boat so they kick you out of town.
Which is, I mean, yeah, this...
This orca knows way too much about human interactions and how things work.
Yeah, it is the most... I mean, it's positing that whales are really smart, which they are, and we don't know much about them, but this is... Like, how does a whale have any concept of ownership? Like,
how does a whale know about flammable material and how you set things on fire?
Oh, that's
coming up, but yeah, no, but I'm foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah, but then after this, the captain's getting drunk at night, and the scientist, still smitten by him, comes to talk about him. And I love that she has a line, she's like, Melville believed that if God came back, he would come back as a whale. And the captain says, you can't really believe this, can you? And I'm like, believe that Melville said this?
Yeah, Melville actually, that's a quote from Melville.
That's a quote. It doesn't involve any sort of belief structure.
My favorite part about this scene, though, when he's kind of drinking, is she comes and she brings him a book about whales. And he, like, opens it up, and he can't read for shit. Like, he's having trouble, like, reading very simple words and stuff. He's kind of stuttering as he reads. I was like, oh, he can't read good.
Richard Harris don't read good.
But he was just like being drunk and not believing in the silly hocus pocus of the whales.
What is this science you're bringing to me?
And it's weird because they keeps having conflicting ideologies in this film. At first they're just like, no, don't kill the whales, they're majestic and beautiful. And then as soon as the whale like sinks a boat or two, everyone's like, no, you need to go out there and fucking kill that whale. They start calling it a monster and shit like that. Before they're just like, no, these creatures, just leave them alone. They're just like, fucking kill that whale, it sunk my boat.
Yeah, and where Richard Harris had no problem.
Dawkins.
Where Richard Dawkins.
Are we playing The Feud? Oh, that's Richard Dawson. My bad.
Yeah, Richard Dawkins is the atheist.
Whatever. Same thing. Family Feud, atheism. It's all the same.
Orca, Family Feud, atheism. It's all rolled up together.
It's all relative.
But he's fine with killing whales until he goes to a church and the preacher tells him that sins are primarily against oneself.
But I like that he was like, son, you can sin against a blade of grass. And I was immediately just like, how the fuck can you sin against a blade of grass?
Well, I guess the idea is that if you feel bad about it, then that's a sin, that you construct a sin in your own mind.
Oh,
which,
cool.
I mean, I've
never sinned. I don't give a fuck.
See, there you go. Well, there you go. That's it's a very liberal view for a preacher to take.
Yeah, very much so. He's supposed to be like, no, you've sinned. Come confess. Tell me all your dirty little secrets. Oh, yeah, more. Tell me more. More detail.
I'm so lonely here on this island.
That's how I imagine it is, anyway.
Yes. Where do we go from here? Oh, he goes, and he sets up a scarecrow after reading his book. I mean, this is kind of skipping around, but
it is. But I don't know what his purpose was with that, because I thought maybe he filled it full of like guts or whatever, and maybe that was something he got from the Indian, and he was trying to make the whale think he killed him. But
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But that's not what he does at all.
No, he wants to build a scarecrow and put it out there to apologize to the whale. That's his entire plan.
Well, no, that's weird.
Explained.
It seems like he sets up the scarecrow and like he's going to do something, or maybe he was going to distract him and then he was going to shoot it. But then he had a change of heart. I think this is what happened. He tried a change of heart, and then he was just going to go out to the dock and try to talk to the whale.
Yeah, he's not drunk anymore, by the way. He is under the impression that he can go apologize mano a mano to the whale, and maybe it will understand.
Well, pretty much we find out at this point, this is where the captain starts going a little crazy, but it's kind of understandable, and he basically starts thinking that him and the whale are the same. Because at one point there's a weird flashback that doesn't get explained until later, but it's a flashback of like the baby whale popping out of the mom, which is weird, and then like of a car accident. But the car accident thing isn't explained until later, where we find out that...
no, this is actually where it is explained, right after the scarecrow scene.
Yeah.
When they're in the tent.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all ADR'd in.
Yeah.
Because you never see him actually telling the story. Yeah,
because they come up with that after the fact, probably. But,
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but basically a drunk driver killed the captain's family. They killed his wife and daughter, so he's one with the whale. They've both been through the same thing. And he even has a line at some point.'s like, "I'm the whale's drunk driver."
Oh my god! But yeah, his wife was also pregnant at the time, so it's a lot of coincidence going into this. But yeah, he's like, I understand what the whale is feeling because the same thing happened to me. And then the whale like blows up the gas
Street Fighter.
that's what I like to imagine everyone as now. That's my new impression, just blanket impression. Sean Connery, I'm Irish. I don't know. That's all I had for Sean Connery. Anyway, this is where Orca somehow has a conception that if he destroys this one pipe, he's gonna set the town on fire.
Okay, so it kind of makes sense because he hits the pipe and there's a no smoking sign next to it, so obviously it's flammable material. How the whale would know that this is flammable material, I have no idea. And how the whale would know to take out this other little room, or like, I guess some kind of room right by the water that has a gas lamp in it that sets everything on fire. How the fuck would that whale understand to do that?
He's Orca, man.
He's fucking mischievous, man. He's like, he's fucking committing arson.
Yeah, and so this sets the dock on fire, which it's awesome, but at the same time, it goes on from there. It not only sets the dock on fire, it makes it up to apparently the gasoline factory they have up on the hill, and just this huge explosion as the whale watches with his eye. And then,
he watches, but then he's like, he's leaping up from the water like in victory. But it's still like cute when the whale does this because it's a trained whale doing it. But it's just cute because he's just like flopping in the air, like, yes, I killed everyone. No, it's pretty awesome. And then they go so the whole crew is in this house. Like the girl she has a cast on her entire leg because she hurt her foot. Which, by the way, that's Bo Derek, by the way.
Oh yeah, that is Bo
Which
Derek.
This is actually her first film. This is like a couple years before she did 10 with Dudley Moore. So this is like her first movie, and she's kind of a little unrecognizable in it. I didn't realize it until I looked at the IMDb that was Bo Derek.
Yeah, I forgot I saw her name. I was like, where's Bo Derek in this? But yeah, that was her. And I love that they're at this house for the night, and they apparently... I'm not sure if it's just supposed to be in the scene or it's playing, but there is elevator music, like elevator jazz playing. And I was like, who has a record of elevator jazz?
Captain Nolan, that's who.
Captain
Because this is actually the house that like he rented. He even uses that as an excuse to not leave. He's like, I already paid a month's rent on my house. This is the house that he's been renting.
Yeah, so... weird.
Which, by the way, this house was put up on like shitty little sticks. Like... uh, basically what happens in this next scene was bound to happen sooner or later. This was not propped up very well.
Yeah, well, first he gets a call. The townspeople are finally like, "Hey, your boat's gonna be fixed by the morning. You have to leave." He sends a guy to try and go get gas so that they can drive away, so he can go out on the boat by himself. But they won't sell him gas like the other guy gas at the gas station. And the native it comes out. He's just like,
Let's just call him Nanook. Nanook of the
So
North.
Nanook of the North says, "Tell Nolan he must accept in his heart what he knows in his mind."
I'm sorry,
He just
please
kinda
don't
leaves
do
it
that
at
anymore. That's a really bad Native American impression.
No, it's his impression. It's
No,
not Native
he
American.
totally doesn't sound like that. Like, you're doing a bit much.
He's pretty stilted in his accent. But fine. No more. But so he doesn't they won't sell them gas even though the captain's planning to leave. So it's like the crew's being dragged into this, even as the captain's trying to be like, "No, you guys should leave."
Well,
like, I
when
don't
they
want
actually
to
go
drag
out,
you down with this.
It's weird because first Nanook goes along for no fucking reason. Second, okay, Charlotte Rampling goes along. Like pretty much his whole crew and everyone comes along, even though like yes, of course you're all gonna die. This is what he's going out there for, is to die. And she even brings like her assistant Ken, who is actually played by Robert Carradine.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
But I don't know, like, why the fuck would he come along? I think there's even a little voiceover thing saying why she brought him along, but it's like, why would you do this if this guy's gonna go fight this fucking whale and probably die?
It's so... Everyone's actions are so inexplicable. Like, I mean, let's... first...
Well, yeah,
So
let's
the
stick with the house
captain-
scene.
Yeah, the captain leaves the house, even though the girl with the cast, Bo Derek, she wants to leave with him, but he's like, "No, you just sit here and you rest your pretty little leg." And the whale, and this is the most, oh my god, the scene is so insane, because the whale
This
just
is
starts
totally
hitting,
playing on the whole Jaws scene where Quint dies. I think that's what it was trying to play on.
I could, yeah, definitely, and I do know enough about Jaws to know what you're talking about.
I'm sure you've seen that scene. You've seen fucking
oh, yeah.
TNT when they're like, they're classic movies. There's that scene of Jaws popping out of the water and eating Quint. You've seen that at least.
Yes, I have. And yeah, so the whale starts hitting the pylons underneath the house.
They're not even pylons. They're fucking like twigs. Like they're not even
much.
logs. They're like maybe half a foot around, like sticks.
This house is built precariously off a cliff. There is
Yeah.
It's pretty insane how,
Like I said, this is gonna happen sooner or later.
yeah, it was bound to happen. And so the whale just starts knocking it down, the house starts falling, and the incongruity between what is happening in the long shot of the model house and what is actually happening inside the house is hilarious. Like,
It is, but I actually really dug the model work of the outside shot of the house, like falling down. Like that was actually kind of cool.
It worked if they had just remembered to open the door.
Yeah.
That is like, because it just keeps cutting between Bo Derek like falling backwards, which I mean she could have taken 2 steps forward and not gotten into all that trouble.
Oh yeah, but they have
Instead,
scenes of like them hanging from like the outside of the house and shit, and then it'll cut to outside and it's still like a perfectly put together house with all the doors closed and shit.
Yeah, you could see the door open and then like there's water that's obviously coming in on the outside, but then you're back inside and there's no water at all. Like it's just and the captain and the other guy are just having the most trouble trying to get down to this girl, and she ends up getting her leg bitten off. My favorite part is when the firemen come, they run straight down to her without any problem and just take her right back up. It's like, why?
Well, yeah, it's not even
having
at nearly as much of a slant all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But the thing about it that's funny is that yes, it takes her leg, but it takes the leg that was already broken from the initial incident, so it basically just bites her fucking cast off, and then you see it kind of swimming away with the casted leg hanging out of its mouth. Like, ha ha.
And then
I do kind of hope that like she ends up getting a peg leg though. She can be a real pirate.
I think she probably bled out, if we're gonna be honest. But and then the whale's doing another one of his victory dances, and the captain starts screaming at him like, "You win! I'm going out. You win!" And then a fucking whiplash cut to them on the boat.
He keeps calling him like a son of a bitch and stuff like that, and it's like, dude, you're yelling at a whale. Come on.
I mean, it is the guy that was gonna go apologize to said whale.
Yeah.
Insane. And this is where we get the second voiceover, which I think that's where they had to use it. So like, wait, why is she on the boat? Because she had no plans to go with him at this point.
Yeah, why is anybody on the boat other than the fucking captain?
Yeah, no, they have this new guy that ends up getting eaten, and you're supposed to care about, I guess, but you see him for like all of 2 scenes.
No. The new guy was like her assistant, who you saw in the beginning. Like, he was the one up on the boat while she was diving. He was the one working the projector in her class. Like, this is the first time he actually has any lines, really, is... well, I guess he has a couple in the beginning, but the first time you really see him in close-up and he has lines is in this scene on the boat.
Yeah, it's... Anyway.
But there's no reason to care about him, because he seriously, every other time you've seen him in the movie, he just looks bored.
Yeah, and then, well, he does.
I will say, one thing, though, is that, okay, so there's a scene where the captain lights a thing of dynamite and was going to throw it to try to kill the whale. But, of course, the whale hits the boat, the dynamite falls out of his hand, and then there's just, like, everyone's butterfingers trying to get the dynamite
No, because... The scientist lady goes up, and she tries to stop him after he's lit it. She's like, no, you can't throw it out. And so it gets thrown back on the boat. So she runs at it, grabs it, and throws it out the boat. Like, what was your end plan for what to do with this dynamite?
Yeah, it was stupid. But then, like, there's a scene where, like, they're all coughing and stuff, and she's kind of hanging her head over the boat. And then he's like, no, get away from there. It's going to bite your head off. And he, like, goes and saves her. And I really thought it was going to bite her head off or something cool was going to happen. But he, like, goes and tackles her. And then we see the whale's, like, 50 feet, 100 feet away from the boat at that point. Like, they built up this thing, like, oh, the whale's coming for her head. But it was, like, really far away from the boat at that point. Okay, so after this crazy shot of, you know, you thinking the whale's coming for them, but then it's, like, really far away from the boat, pretty soon after that, Ken, played by Robert Carradine, randomly gets fucking picked off the ship by the whale. It's a weird cut, too. I don't even get how it worked and how he was that close to the edge.
No, yeah, and he looks like a young John Travolta.
He kind of does.
I called him John Travolta boy, but yeah, it's such... a throwaway death, and it is the totally
funniest
unnecessary.
thing. The funniest thing about it is that everyone else on the boat gave exactly as much of a shit about Ken dying as the audience does, which is to say none whatsoever. Like, seriously, they're just like, oh, Ken, and then they move on. Like, they don't even mention it again. They don't even seem sad about it.
Yeah, like, oh, well, there goes
And I
Ken.
distinctly think I heard that whale shout out nerd as it ate him, which is just not right.
Nerd. I also love... There's a scene, it's right before Kit dies, but the scientist lady once again is talking to the captain, and he's starting to get a little wacky.
He's starting to get a little crazy. He's starting to lose it with this whole me and the whale are the same thing.
Yeah, losing it a little bit. But she's talking to... She's like... this is actually in her voiceover, and she's like... And thinking and seeing if this whale was capable of calculated and vengeful actions, which I found hard to believe. Like, but you started your monologue by saying that whales are capable of vengeance. Like, why are you all of a sudden finding this hard to believe?
Well, that's why I'm wondering how much of this is actually fact, because it sounds like she was just kind of bullshitting and trying to sound sciencey, and like maybe she didn't really know. She's like, oh shit, I was just making that shit up as I went along. I didn't know this had actually happened.
I was doing that specifically for Richard Harris because I foresaw all of this happening. But yeah, I mean, it's very hard to believe that a whale is intentionally setting a dock on fire somehow. Yeah. That he has enough understanding of these mechanics.
Exactly. Like, that's it's just weird. So from this point on in the movie, I have to admit, I kind of started losing interest. Like, it had me for the most part, but from here on, I kind of just stopped caring as much about what was happening.
I spaced out on the whole chase part. Essentially, when they say, like, the whale wants us to follow it, because he's waving his fin like he wants them to follow, and so they follow him to the Arctic. And like, this stuff happens, but yeah, it was pretty boring. It wasn't.
Yeah, so not only do they have to worry about a whale now, but now there's icebergs everywhere.
Yeah, and it's pretty much Nanook and the captain and the science lady.
Yeah.
And so they get to the Arctic, and like the captain's pretty full blown insane at this point, kind of. Like, I mean, not really insane. He's just like, no, it has to be me and the whale.
Well, not only that, but he's also like cracking jokes and shit like that.
Yeah,
Like he's just kind of laughing about it, like he's gone insane.
Yeah, and then the native guy is just he holds him at gunpoint. He's just like, no, we need to. Like, this is after they found out they don't have enough gas to get anywhere, that they're gonna have to send out an SOS, blah blah blah. And he's like, no, we're gonna leave. You can't do this. Like, wouldn't this have been a lot more helpful before we were in the Arctic?
Yeah, before
like,
it's probably
maybe,
gonna be really hard to turn your boat around with all the ice everywhere.
Like, you really could have planned this takeover.
Not only that, there's also a really funny scene where the chief like basically gets on the radio and tries to like send out an SOS for help or whatever, and it's just these horrible 80-yard lines of like him actually doing it. Like, it's so obviously because it's a close up of his face and his mouth is just not moving the same way that his lines are, and it's really the equivalent of like in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like, I just kept hearing in my head like, paging Mr. Herman, Mr. Herman, you have a telephone call. Like, that's kind of what that 80-yard was like.
Yeah, I could see that. I also forgot about his first mate or something. There's this scene where he's getting in a lifeboat and he gets knocked out into the water, and instead of anybody trying to help him, they just act like he is instantly dead.
Yeah, well,
like,
pretty much.
I guess we lost him.
That's what's weird, is that I don't even remember seeing him getting eaten. I think maybe he just froze.
No. Like,
I think he hit the water and instantaneously froze. Yeah.
Because that's how cold water works. You're just hypothermia right away.
Well, that's the thing, and I think that's why I started not giving a shit about the movie, because the movie started not giving a shit about itself at this point.
Yeah.
Like, Ken dies, no one gives a shit. The first mate, the guy that looks like the guy from Jaws the Revenge, he just like fucking falls off, and there's like, okay, I guess he's dead too. Just like everyone just starts getting picked off. I don't even remember what happened to the Indian chief. Like, I know he died somehow, but I think I missed it.
It's when Orca is bumping his head against an iceberg to send it towards their boat. He goes out on the side and pretty much an avalanche happens. It has nothing to do with the whale. He just happens to go outside when an avalanche happens, like after the iceberg hits the boat.
Oh.
And if he had just run right back inside from where he came, he would have been fine. But he just kind of stands there like, oh!
See, towards the end, it just got lazy, and it threw in like 3 deaths within 10 minutes of each other, just like, and it's lazy, and most of them didn't even have to do with the Orca.
No, yeah, and I love that Richard Harris apparently took this role so seriously that he decided he was going to do all of his own stunts, and apparently almost died for a couple of them.
I could see that, especially at the end there.
Yeah, because they're actually in the Arctic. That's when he was doing them. That's like the stunts that they didn't want him to do. And it's just like, how sad would it have been if he died for Orca? He's like, no, this is the role that's going to make me.
Well, I mean, he's had a really good career, though. Yeah, he actually, he was in the Harry Potter movies. He was fucking Dumbledore in that. Yeah, he's had a lot of really good roles throughout the years.
No, he has. He was English Bob in Unforgiven.
Yeah, no, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's a very short role, but it was awesome.
But yeah, no, he was badass in that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. What if his career was cut short because he wanted to go all out for Orca? How sad would that have been? Well, I guess we would never know. But...
Yeah, I would have championed him a hero.
Yes. And then there's this whole last scene where like he's fighting him on a sheet of ice, and
which is so silly. Like, it really is. And even then, there are images that kind of call back to Quint's death scene in Jaws again, because the ice starts sliding and he's like sliding almost into the mouth of the whale.
Yeah, well, yeah, the whale doesn't end up eating him. He just he slaps him and he hits the ice.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like you said, like playing with its food. It kind of like hit him up into the air and he falls to the ice and he's all bloody and shit.
Yeah, and once again, no one tries to help him. Like, oh, he just must be dead. Like,
yeah,
we're not
but he's still like he's sliding back into the water, and he's still like moving and stuff. But then I guess again, the whale didn't eat him. He just kind of froze to death. I guess also.
Yeah, and then you hear a helicopter because that's a really fast SOS they have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, that's the thing. This movie wraps itself up in literally like 10 minutes. It just, everything happens, like everyone dies, or except for Charlotte Rampling, and then the helicopter shows up, and then that's the end of the movie. But there's one thing about the ending of this movie that I don't understand what it was trying to do. Okay, so after she gets picked up from the helicopter, or when we see that, we cut to the whale underneath the ice. And it looks almost like he can't get out, like he's stuck under the ice. So is that what it's supposed to be saying? Like, he gets stuck under the
Oh.
ice? Does he die too?
Oh, they didn't make that clear.
Well,
I
see, it
guess-
wasn't clear because also, like, he just wasn't stuck under ice, so he could have gotten back out, but it kind of, like, you guys kept
Yeah.
seeing him underneath, and he kept, like, going up to the surface, but there was ice there. So I'm not sure if it's if it's saying that, like, oh, it died too because it got caught under the ice.
Oh, I guess it was.
So,
But
like, he got his
didn't
revenge,
work.
but at what price?
He could not remember which direction he came from because there was a very large opening.
Yeah,
right
as smart
where he
as
is.
as smart as this whale was supposed to be throughout this movie, it ends up being pretty fucking dumb.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I guess they're like, well, shit, we've kind of made the whale the Ahab character. We have to kill him somehow.
Well, see, that's the thing. At first, I was like, "Oh, well, that's cool." You're going with the whole the whale is the hero of the movie, and I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool." But then, yeah, they decided to kill him at the end. I was like, "Well, that's kind of stupid. Like, is everything he's done throughout this entire movie, and you're gonna have him die by just not being able to find his way out of ice?"
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are trying to posit the whale as the hero, but he's also doing very horrible things, apparently, that he is cognizant of. And then, like, just, like, celebrating and killing these people that really had nothing to do with his wife's death.
Well, he's your typical anti-hero. He's like the Punisher of whales.
I mean, it's definitely, you can see, like, from the writers being so involved with Sergio Leone, you can kind of see where this script came from, like, the whole, like, just straightforward revenge plot. That's kind of what they do to a certain degree.
Oh yeah.
Or just amoral, just renegade plots. Like, those are the two things they pretty much do.
Yeah. So that was Orca.
Yeah, Orca, the whale with no name.
Ooh, that would
Yeah.
have been a much better subtitle to this movie instead of the killer whale. Orca, the whale with no name
Yeah.
that we just named.
Except for Orca.
Yeah, except that name we just gave you. But other than that, he has no name.
Well, that was strange. And not terribly exciting. God bless Richard Harris for giving it his all. Join us next week for Wes Craven's Cursed, with monsters that are actually scary. Werewolves. Well, at least they're ostensibly scary. We'll see.